Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today, John?
Namaste.
So, John, I feel like you've been a vocal advocate for India, but people here don't know that. So, what they look at you and see is a white guy in India. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your association with India.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Saumya. And firstly, thanks to Tuck and the whole Hashed team. It's our first run at India Blockchain Week, so we come here with a lot of humility, a lot of big names here, and clearly it's the landmark event on the calendar, so it's great to be involved, and I'm sure we'll be involved a lot more in the future, given our aspirations in India. Yeah, I might be the white guy with a little bit of grey hair. I first came here in the late 90s. That's how old I am. And then spent a bit of time here with Goldman Sachs in the early 2000s when they had a partnership with Kotak Mahindra. And then worked for a guy from Gujarat for 7 years at Goldman. And so kind of got to understand, why that part of the country is so important in terms of founders and entrepreneurs. And then somehow spun out into the pizza business and was running APAC with Domino's, and did a lot with the Jubilant Group guys as well, so learned a lot about those, the importance of those big Indian conglomerates. A lot of them are looking to digitize, clearly, and a lot of them have got into e-commerce and payments. And then with Ant Group and Alibaba, a few more kind of war scars with Paytm. And so, that was the kind of Chinese ownership investment in a big Indian player. But I think delighted now to be part of the Coinbase team. I think a lot of people don't know, we have, nearly 500 people in India. It's a long way away from a kind of BPO model. We've got global cryptography teams here, AI teams here, global payment rails are run out of India. And so, we have a lot of what we call top talent in-house, and we're going to keep growing that. So if they can keep a few white guys around, I'll be happy, but I'm pretty sure we can hand the keys over soon to a fully local team.
That sounds amazing. I feel like having been part of Coinbase, I think it's been awesome to see the commitment to India categorically. From talking about Coinbase, what is Coinbase's mission? And categorically, how are you looking at India? What is your role here in facilitating that?
Yeah, look, I think we would like to be someone that was kind of associated with increasing economic freedom. And that sounds like a big, lofty goal. And there's a lot of kind of, emotion in that narrative if you're trying to advance people's wealth and bring them up the economic ladder. But Brian Armstrong, our founder, spent a lot of time in South America pretty soon after his kind of university years, and saw that there are a lot of economies that are kind of tied to this US dollar burden in many ways. Lots of challenges of getting money in and out of these countries. The dollar's pegged for different industries. If you're in tourism, you get, this many cents to the dollar. If you're in education, you get this many cents to the dollar. It's just a really kind of antiquated structure that's kind of controlling much of the world financial system and remittances and flows of money. And so, we want to upgrade the system. And we really want to ensure that people can move their own money atomically in real time for, tens of basis points, with base. Make sure that gas fees are under a cent, under a second, and really make this sustainable and scalable. As part of that economic freedom, it's really important that we're the trusted exchange. Our colors are blue and white, as you can see on either side of the stage. And we spend a huge amount of time leaning in on regulation. And that means having boots on the ground in every geography that we're in. And so in the case of Australia, where I live and operate out of, we have Australian compliance, Australian legal, Australian marketing, Australian finance, Australian treasury. And we're gearing up for a very serious regulatory regime there under the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. In Singapore with MAS, it's the same thing. And so that's all born out of our roots in the US and North America. We were the first publicly listed SEC-regulated exchange. That comes with a lot of cost. That compliance and that governance is really expensive, but we've done it up front, early, because we think it's important and we think it's where the world is going. And I think we're talking about regulatory trends today, and I think we're seeing that all beginning to kind of play out globally. So in short, you know, a 70 billion market cap company, you know, over 110 million users, 115 million users globally. The bulk of those historically have been in the US, but the future of Coinbase is international, and a big chunk of that is in APAC. And within APAC, you know, if we want to bring 1 billion people on chain, which is the mantra of our founder, then we're going to be able to do that in countries like India a lot faster than anywhere else.
And when you say that the mission is to bring 1 billion people on chain, how are you planning on doing that? Like, what is the approach? What are the different verticals that you're focusing on to bring these 1 billion people on chain from APAC, from India, from emerging markets?
Yeah, great question. And so we're clearly about 1/8 of the way there. So we've got our work cut out for us, but luckily in India there's really strong blockchain and digital asset adoption, crypto adoption, etc. Quite simply, we have 3 buckets of our business: the consumer business, the institutional business, and the developer business. I'll let this guy talk to the developer business because that's base in his day job. And it's by far the most exciting stuff we do. It's probably what we get out of bed for. And it's really around the mission. The next USDC stablecoin, or the next on-ramper, or the next, you know, utility product or Bitcoin is going to come out of the developer world. So we need that to keep, you know, kind of fermenting and evolving and growing. But the money that you know, pays for everyone's jobs comes primarily from the spot trading business. And that's the Coinbase retail consumer app. And so we've recently launched that in India, regulated under the transaction monitoring and AML KYC overview of the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU. And that business, in that app, you can be trading 400 or 500 different tokens. There's staking, there's yield, there's an advanced trading app, there's a CB1 membership program. And so that's our bread and butter. That's our kind of day job. The second bucket of business is the institutional business. That's the business that's quite well known for custodying the BlackRock ETF, the Franklin Templeton ETF. The majority of the Bitcoin ETFs we custody, and that comes with a lot of humility and trust. You know, I think winning the BlackRock business was about 3.5 years of due diligence. And so you don't kind of win BlackRock's business without them kind of looking under the hood, really kicking the tires and checking out, you know, how you kind of dot your I's and cross your T's, and they take it pretty seriously. We've then gone on to custody the Ethereum ETFs, and we're also custodian and lending money and collateral and kind of more prime brokerage services to the digital asset treasuries, the MicroStrategies of the world, the MetaPlanets of the world, etc. And so that institutional business is a huge, you know, branding endorsement for the consumer business in many ways. So those are the 2 big buckets of business. And then the third one is the developer space. Maybe let you talk about the dev space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like a lot of our work is about like empowering like local innovation and making sure that Indian talent, like categorically speaking about like Base's mission in India is to bring India on chain. What that looks like tangibly is helping Indian founders and Indian builders and Indian talent build better. And we've spent the past year or so in India building a large community, working with lots of founders and builders and giving them access to this large global stage that we at Coinbase have access to. And that's led to a lot of global products come out of India. And it's been fantastic to see, right? It's been, and to see a product go from an idea to like a small working MVP, to becoming a startup, to getting funded, to getting millions of users. I think we've seen that journey for multiple products that have come out of these rooms. So when I look at this room here, I see like builders, founders, developers. If you're here, if you're building, we've got programs for you that are gonna tailor you to become a better founder, a sharper founder. And I feel like a large challenge with an Indian founder has always been access to capital, access to distribution, global markets, and I think crypto enables that. And what we've been focusing on is how can we make sure we give access to Indian founders and builders through our programs, initiatives, help builders build better, help builders go viral, get them access to global distribution, unlock new markets for them, work one-on-one with them, and create programs and support structures like base batches, Incubase, which is an incubator program that we run. We also run these virtual cohorts called Build on Chain, which are large cohorts. We partnered with large entities and like engineering colleges so that they have access to blockchain technology and they understand that there's real merit in creating products and services that are permissionless and trustless. So I think we've done a good job in the year we've been here. And yeah, I feel in general, this is the year it feels we go mainstream. So I'm quite excited about the Indian landscape. I've also been a big advocate of the India journey. And I think we're doing well, yeah. So, okay, I think enough.
Yeah, I mean, the base stuff's exciting because if you think about Web 1, which was, you'd read on the internet, it was a one-way journey as a consumer looking onto a screen. Web 2, it was a two-way interaction where you could, respond and put your feedback and your social comments. And then Web 3 is really about how does the user monetize their content and not be, kind of under the control of these walled gardens of these huge platforms. And so I think so much stuff around, ownership of your own intellectual property for creators and developers and builders is going to happen on Base. And that to me is like India's kind of ground zero for that. Everyone's got a side hustle. Everyone I talk to here has a day job and a side job and they've been part of a project historically. Yeah. And so that's the stuff that's on Base. And then also I think for India Inc., like clearly there needs to be, and when you listen to the government, you listen to teams in Delhi, they want to bring so much stuff on chain. It's happening already now. Land registry, health records, insurance, etc. All this stuff can be on chain. The blockchain distributed ledger technology is where it should be for many, many, many reasons. And it's all coming to life.
Yeah, and because we're talking about like regulation, maybe like shift gears and give us a purview of the global regulation space, how you see it evolving, how you see maybe like the global sense first, and then we can go regionally into like APAC and India and how you see things shaping up.
Yeah, I mean, regulation might not be the kind of sexiest topic you'll hear at India Blockchain Week with the drum and bass music and the lights, but without the regulation and the guardrails, the industry's not going to evolve. It's not going to get 1 billion people on chain. It's not going to get the government support it needs. It's not going to get the investment. So I think we've been, kind of working with industry at Coinbase in so many geographies for probably the better part of 5 or 6 years to get to where we are today. And clearly the Clarity Act and the Genius Act have been very important pieces of legislation with very strong adoption on either side of the aisles, pretty bipartisan. And that's really driven these tailwinds kind of globally. Recently in Canada, Mark Carney and the government leadership there have announced stablecoin regime guidance and draft regulation for digital assets. MiCA in Europe is quite a serious kind of compliant regime, but it's a blanket regime for all the countries in the EU, which is great to get access to one big population set. In the Middle East, the Gulf states and the Emirates have clearly been leaning in very hard on regulation. That's probably been one of the more liberal areas in terms of where you can be operating. In this part of the world, MAS are a very kind of innovation-driven regulator. They're quite careful around speculation And so it's a balance between building a business where people want to trade and invest and enjoy risk-taking, but also promoting innovation. And so, we would be talking to the MAS nearly on a daily basis, both, providing information for requests and also helping them build a lot of their sandboxes and their innovation. Project Orchid, Project Bloom, I'm sure a lot of you have been part of these projects. And so they're kind of best in class in APAC. I think if you look to Hong Kong, they're on their third stage of regulation, and I think it's getting better and better and better. But I'll talk to Australia, which is where I live. I'm actually a New Zealander or a Kiwi. Pretty important to make that distinction. And New Zealand regulation is years behind. So I think Australia is doing a great job. But in the case of Australia, they might actually be able to kind of leapfrog with their regulation because they took a bit of a wait and see approach. And about 18 months ago, 24 months ago, the chairman of ASIC, which is like the SEC, the Australian Securities Investment Commission, he was openly critical of Bitcoin, was openly saying in public, in the media, at conferences, you shouldn't touch Bitcoin, it doesn't have value, the swing in prices is not healthy for consumers, et cetera, et cetera. And so 18 months later, he's been to the US, he's met the chair of the SEC, he's seen a lot of challenges to the Australian Stock Exchange that is a very, very fragile, dated technology platform that has outages nearly every week. And he basically delivered a speech at the press club in Canberra, which would be like, being on the main stage at Saxena in Delhi with all of these policy people and media, and said we need to innovate and update our financial systems. And in his speech, he mentioned distributed ledger technology. Every regulator, unfortunately, has a different vernacular for digital asset exchange, digital currency exchange, crypto exchange, whatever. In Australia, they like the term distributed ledger technology. I don't mind what they call it, as long as they're supportive of digital assets. And so we then saw a week later, the Deputy Treasury, Dan Molino, table draft legislation in Parliament the last day before they break for the summer break. And I think we know that parliamentarians have quite good holidays. So it was really important we got it in there before they left for Christmas and New Year or the festive season in India. That now gives us 6 months of relief. We can launch products in Australia. We were quite hesitant to launch because we thought we would have got a speeding ticket from the regulator. And because we lean on regulation and compliance, we probably are a bit more careful in other brands. But we have a 6-month grace period where we can progress and experiment and launch products. The same relief period's just been announced in the US overnight as well. And then in June 2026, we'll have our license, and there'll probably be another 12 months of grace period while the draft legislation comes into written law. So this, for our policy teams, is like shockingly good. If we look into India and overlay it into India, kind of coming from global to APAC, down to where we are today here in Karnataka, at an Indian Delhi level, they've got the taxation locked down. Most people do the tax first. They definitely don't want you to make money, and the government wants to make some money as well, right? So that's a normal flow to get the taxation sorted out. We would like to think that the taxation will improve and not be so burdensome, and that it's a disincentive to be exploring digital assets. The next thing they do is the transaction monitoring, KYC, AML, to stop the money launderers and the bad actors, and that's FIU, and they're very active. We're very engaged with FIU, talking to them, on a daily, weekly basis as well, to make sure that the right levels of transaction monitoring are in place, and that's with our compliance teams and our legal teams. And then the next phase is taking consultation on draft regulation and who will be the branch of government that is driving that regulation. And that's happening right now. I think we've heard some nice kind of green shoots and whispers and conversations about CBDCs and Indian rupee stablecoins. And so we want to be part of that conversation and help provide solutions to Delhi and the Indian government. You know, they take the sovereignty of the Indian rupee very seriously for good reason. There's 1.4 billion people here. You know, not every country is going to be like America or like Australia or Singapore. And so, you know, Coinbase is very happy to localize product and localize policy for what's best for that country.
Gotcha. Like, firstly, thank you so much, right, on giving that flavor. I think it's really helpful to understand the global landscape and then where we are when it comes to India. Now, categorically, like maybe diving deep into India's and like Coinbase's journey within this regulatory setup of India, what has that been like? Where are we right now? How do you see that shaping up?
Yeah, so we had millions of customers in India historically. And we took a very clear stance to offboard those customers entirely from overseas entities where they were domiciled and regulated, because we wanted to kind of burn the boats, have a clean slate, and start fresh here. As a commercial business person, you know, wanting to make money and get MAU and active users, that's like the worst thing you can do. And so, you know, it wasn't without some hesitation and thought, when you press the send button to send out that CRM, your account's going to be closed. You have X many days to offboard and cash out your funds. You know, that was something we believed we had to do if we were to launch India properly. So we've done that. We thankfully had quite a big waiting list. A lot of those customers wanted to come back to Coinbase. Recently, we relaunched our business, and in doing so, set up a total local Indian entity, doing exactly what I mentioned before. Got a whole Indian org chart, and you know, everyone in our 500-person team here wants to be part of the India launch team, right? They don't just want to be providing global services to one of the best crypto exchanges. That's a cool thing, and lots of people want to join us, and that's a great kind of thing, being in management, having people at this conference come up to you and say, hey, are there any jobs at Coinbase? But they also want to be part of the team that's going to bring 1 billion people on chain, because they all know we're probably not going to do it in Russia. We're probably not the right brand to be in Nigeria necessarily. We can do that with Base. We can do that with Wallet. We can serve a lot of these other markets with our developer tools. But this is really central to our board, to our executive team, to our founder, Brian Armstrong. And then launching a full fiat offering here early next year is the next step of that process. So watch this space. We've got a major product announcement in mid-December, December 17th. Most of those products we feel we can launch in India in rapid succession quite quickly, given our legal analysis and given our discussions with the regulators and the FIU. So super excited for this market. We can bring a bunch of this product on board. But I think, you know, we want to be known as that trusted exchange, ensure that your funds are safe with us. You know, not everyone can operate, you know, a ledger wallet or cold storage. Again, we're not going to get out to the masses if you can't have a really nice UI, a really trusted experience that allows you to onboard in a matter of minutes, in the same way that you do with, you know, Zepto or Flipkart or any other super app in India.
So, firstly, like, I feel like I've been seeing the 17 December playbook everywhere. It feels like there's something coming. I'm quite psyched for what we are bringing on board. And but maybe just like, because you mentioned trusted exchange a bunch of times, and like, where is the next, say, like, billion people coming from? Where's the next amount of like usage coming from? Where's the next amount of like $1 trillion coming from? Is it coming from institutions? What have you been seeing from an institutional point of view within this current regulatory landscape? How does that fit in?
Yeah, so we have institutional teams that cover this market through our Deribit team. So that was a major acquisition recently. They have teams in the Middle East and Singapore and who cover this market. So we have, you know, lots of customers in India already that are Deribit customers. They're probably also Coinbase prime and institutional customers at the same time. There's a lot of overlap in that customer group. So we have a lot of experience with this audience. I would say the family office and the kind of more traditional financial institutions here are following the playbook that we're seeing in North America. And so in North America, we're seeing, some of the largest banks, for example, JP Morgan, Citi, PNC Bank, half of the 6 largest retail banking institutions in North America provide a crypto offering that Coinbase power in the back end, and that's called crypto as a service. So that's something we're quite confident is kind of getting rolled out internationally. One of the biggest wealth managers in the world in Switzerland with the largest wealth management platform. We've just won an RFP with that client, and that's terribly exciting. By default, they would have thousands of customers who are Indian because they have a wealth management arm in Mumbai or in Delhi or in Kolkata. And so that train has left the station. Just this morning, Bank of America announced that they're giving their financial advisors approval to make a 1% to 5% allocation of people's portfolio to crypto. And so, that's classic portfolio allocation diversification. That's not volatility. That's not speculating. That's just classic, kind of sound investment management. So the asset class is fully appreciated on Wall Street, in the equivalent street in Mumbai, that's Wall Street, in Fleet Street in London, on Collier Quay in Singapore, on George Street in Sydney. There's this reflection and acceptance, and the regulators are matching that with their behavior, right? The next group, I think, that is a really interesting one here, and same in Australia and Singapore, is the family office audience. Family offices typically have traded in direct investments first that usually relate to whatever they've done. So if they sold a steel mill or the family cashed out of a chain of hotels, they're probably going to first invest in property, and then they might start an equities trading desk. And then they might get some more advanced traders and do something in Forex or commodities. And then they're kind of using those same teams and that same process. And then they might branch into private equity or VC. So they're kind of using that same process and evolution to now say, hey, we want to start trading crypto. That we feel is a perfect wheelhouse for Coinbase as a trusted exchange. Open a simple retail account, then a retail advanced trading account, then a prime account, then an INTX account, and become more and more kind of advanced and have more derivatives and options and more kind of exotic products as you evolve your knowledge. So that is all to come in India. It's in front of us. We have the demand now. Very, very exciting period in time.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that there's so much coming, especially for Coinbase in India. I know there's a lot that we have been prepping for base in India. What does it look like? How committed are you guys to India? For us, it's a P0 market, right? How important is India for you?
Yeah, so when Saumya says for you, he's talking at an arm's length distance with his base hat on, working for Jesse Polak, and there are equivalents of Saumya all over the world, what we call our base ambassadors. And it's kind of important we have an arm's length relationship with base because then it can flourish and kind of do its own thing. But on the kind of institutional and consumer side of the business, we're hiring for a derivative sales role right now. We'll be hiring for more roles once that person has their feet under the desk. We're hiring for local team and global roles based out of India. And I think people don't recognize that we've got, about 15% of our global team based out of India. Because we're a remote first company, well before it was fashionable during COVID to be remote first, that allows us to get the best talent in the market. We have big teams with a CX hub in Hyderabad. We have pretty big teams in Bangalore, as you'd expect. But we're effectively, operating a team across the whole of the country. That's important as we start this launch journey because we need to go out, reach out to communities the same way you've been going out to base, to Chennai, to Ahmedabad, to Jaipur, wherever the communities are, we're on that journey with our consumer business. So you're going to see a lot more of the team out there wherever you're from. Please reach out to us with any questions, and great to be part of the Hashed Emergent India Blockchain Week.
Awesome. Thank you, John. What I'm hearing is that like Coinbase is 100% committed to India, and excited that you're here, and welcome again to India Blockchain Week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Saumya.